Before we start, like the video and don't forget to subscribe so we can hit 30K subscribers soon. Now let's begin. The story begins inside a live broadcast studio that is completely turned upside down after the sudden disappearance of the sales queen Yi just minutes before going on air. Since she is unbelievably talented and can sell air in bottles, the entire studio depends on her. The director is forced to use a replacement host as an emergency solution, but the guy completely ruins everything. The views and sales instantly drop to zero, and the producer's son demands that they shut down the broadcast immediately to save the station's reputation. But at the very last moment, the miracle call finally comes from Yi herself. She appears live from the 20th floor while testing a glass cleaning product on the outside of the building. Her crazy but genius stunt instantly excites the viewers, and within minutes the entire stock sells out, turning all the panic into overwhelming celebration. On the other side, we meet Choi, a handsome young man living peacefully on his farm in the countryside. Since he is basically the only young man in the village, all the elderly people treat him like their personal savior and force him to help with literally everything, from fixing satellite dishes on rooftops so they can watch concerts, to helping cows give birth, chopping wood, chasing bees, and even gathering their belongings during storms. At one point, he even becomes their personal driver, transporting them around with his tractor while they sit behind him, clapping happily and enjoying the ride. Back at the advertising company, the failed host who replaced Yi secretly burns with jealousy toward her success. But the second she calls him, he immediately switches into full hypocrisy mode and starts praising her non-stop. Meanwhile, Yi goes to meet her doctor boyfriend, who is clearly upset because she is always late due to work. While he seriously talks about their relationship and future together, Yi is mentally somewhere else entirely. Her eyes are locked onto a sharp cutting tool inside the restaurant because she is impressed by its quality and already thinking about selling it on television. Eventually, the doctor gets tired and asks for a break in their relationship, but Yi barely reacts. Instead, she leaves the table just to ask the manager where they bought the cutting tool from. The next day at work, Yi confidently tells the assistant producer that the tool will sell out in less than an hour, but by the end of the day, she receives a huge shock when she sees the sales rankings and discovers another coworker has stolen first place from her. The coworker is Ji, and the category she succeeded in is cosmetics, the exact field Yi refuses to enter under any circumstances. Ji, filled with jealousy and spite, mocks Yi by saying she heard Yi almost caused a huge disaster on the channel, but Yi is a master at destroying people with words. She calmly replies, "Really? I caused a problem and sales still increased by 130%. Then she cleverly reminds Ji that she has been selling the same product for months, while Yi can sell absolutely anything within seconds. Before the argument gets worse, producer Sun quickly drags Yi away. Later, Yi finally starts thinking seriously about her boyfriend's words like a normal girl would. When she returns home, she places the cutting tool inside her room, which looks more like a private museum filled with cleaning products, clothes, and shoes, proving how obsessed she is with sales and marketing. Inside the fridge, she finds many ready-made meals left by her boyfriend, along with warm notes reminding her not to forget eating during work. The drama then compares the lives of the two leads. After Choi finishes working on the farm, he enjoys a warm shower and peacefully prepares himself for sleep. Yi does almost the same routine, but instead of resting, she keeps searching for products to sell. She cannot sleep without sleeping pills, and this slowly traps her inside endless nightmares and painful insomnia. The following day, a makeup expert notices the dark circles under Yi's eyes caused by her lack of sleep, but Yi pretends to be strong as always. While discussing colors with the production team, Ji suddenly appears and smugly informs her that the schedule has changed and her segment will air instead of Yi's. Another woman named Dam then appears and says provocative things to Yi, and strangely, Yi becomes extremely nervous around her specifically and loses the ability to respond. Furious, Yi storms into the manager's office to complain about the schedule change. The manager gives her only one option. If she wants her segment back at its original time, she must promote cosmetics for a company called L'Etoile. But Yi immediately refuses and reminds her about the contract contract condition that clearly states she will never sell cosmetics. The manager coldly replies that she understands the company's interests better than Yi does. We then meet Yan, the young CEO of the cosmetics company L'Etoile, who recently returned from America and whose face is still unknown in Korea. Yan meets Hyun, the manager supplying their raw materials, and asks him to double the quantity because their sales are exploding. But Hyun looks worried and finally reveals the shocking truth. The original owner of the project refuses to renew the contract. Meanwhile, Yi watches Ji and Dam promoting cosmetics on television and suddenly remembers the painful truth from the past. Years ago, she happily promoted a cosmetic product together with them. But overnight, everything collapsed after the product caused horrifying damage to everyone who used it. This tragedy became the real reason behind Yi's complete hatred and fear of selling cosmetics. Back in the present, Yi returns home completely exhausted. Because her insomnia continues for days, she starts taking huge amounts of sleeping pills. The overdose begins affecting her daily life, causing dizziness, hallucinations, and loss of focus. When she visits a doctor, the doctor warns her that the pills can cause memory loss and hallucinations and strictly tells her never to take more than 1 pill per day. But Yi casually reveals that she has been taking 5 pills at once. We finally discover why she depends so heavily on them. Every time she tries reducing the dose, she wakes up terrified in the middle of the night from horrifying nightmares showing the disfigured faces of people harmed by the fake cosmetic cream she once promoted with Dam. She wakes up shaking in fear and becomes unable to sleep again until morning. Despite her terrible condition, Yi still forces herself to work professionally and successfully completes her live segment. As she leaves, she remembers the doctor's warning that her insomnia is psychological and that she will never recover unless she confronts the root of the problem. At the same time, Yan's manager informs him that a marketing company has been contacting them for an entire year and that they have finally received a message from the presenter Yi. The moment Yan hears her name, he immediately jumps up excitedly and demands that a meeting be arranged with her as soon as possible. On the day of the meeting, Yan's excitement is so obvious that even his manager notices how much attention he is giving to his appearance and hairstyle. When Yi arrives, Yan welcomes her warmly, and while reading her proposal, he keeps staring at her with obvious admiration before immediately approving it. Confused, Yi asks why they suddenly accepted after ignoring her for a whole year. Yan cleverly answers by giving her one condition: she must help convince the owner of the White Mushroom Farm to renew the raw material contract. In exchange, her company will receive exclusive rights to all L'Etoile products. Yi instantly agrees because she wants to prove herself, defeat Ji and Dam, and silence everyone criticizing her. As they leave the restaurant, she says she will personally travel to convince the farm owner, and Yan smartly uses the opportunity to ask for her personal phone number. That night, Yi stays awake studying the product despite her exhaustion. Using ChatGPT, she learns that the expensive creams are extracted from a rare ingredient called the white mushroom. At sunrise, she heads toward the countryside village where the farm is located, relying only on her own efforts because even Jan does not know the exact address. As soon as she enters the narrow village road, she encounters Choi driving his tractor directly toward her. Yi politely asks him to reverse so she can pass, and when he lifts his hat, she gets briefly distracted by how handsome he is before remembering her mission. But Choi stubbornly refuses and coldly claims that she is the one driving the wrong way. He even lies to her by saying the tractor cannot reverse. After a tense staring contest, Yi reluctantly tries reversing her own car, but because the road is so narrow, her tire sinks into the mud. Instead of helping her, Joy simply honks impatient for her to hurry up. Furious, Yi steps out and decides to continue on foot while arrogantly telling him to be careful around her expensive car if he manages to pass. Choi calmly measures the distance and drives past her car anyway, only to completely smash her side mirror with the tractor. Yi finally reaches the farm, but finds nobody there. Because she is wearing high heels completely unsuitable for the rough countryside roads, she injures her foot and starts starts limping awkwardly. Suddenly, she notices Choi following behind her with the tractor. When she angrily asks why he is following her, he casually replies that this is simply his road. Yi confidently misunderstands the situation and assumes he is flirting with her, proudly saying she is used to men chasing her with luxury cars, but being chased by a tractor is definitely a first. She keeps talking non-stop while Choi quietly minds his own business. Eventually, she asks him where the white mushroom farm is, and he silently points toward a direction while begging her to move away before he loses his patience completely. As he drives away, Yi remains shocked by how coldly he ignored her beauty and charm, but then she notices a tiny sticker behind the tractor with the words, "White Mushroom." Yi immediately starts chasing after the tractor while shouting for him to stop. When Choi arrives at the farm, Yi finally discovers the truth. The tractor reverses perfectly fine. That means he lied to her earlier just to annoy her. Ignoring that for now, she eagerly asks about the farm owner, but Choi coldly replies that the owner is traveling. Yi desperately keeps trying to get information from him and even gives him her business card to prove she is a famous TV presenter, but he completely refuses to cooperate. He shuts the door directly in her face and even locks it for extra safety. Inside, Choi enters his peaceful green paradise filled with the rare white mushrooms. Here we see how strict and serious he truly is with the workers. He scolds one worker for being careless and warns him that these mushrooms are used in medicine and sensitive cosmetics, so there is absolutely no room for mistakes. When Choi leaves the farm later, he is surprised to find Yi still waiting outside. Since she is smart, she tries gaining his sympathy by showing him her injured foot caused by the high heels. His kind heart softens a little, so he opens an old refrigerator he converted into a shoe cabinet for the workers and tells her to change her shoes. Yi looks disgusted when she sees the huge work shoes, but she stubbornly stays and watches the workers carrying heavy bags of mushrooms. Eventually, she gives up and heads back toward her car, only to discover the terrible damage to her broken side mirror. She bursts into tears because the entire trip feels like a complete disaster. She never met the owner, and now her expensive car is damaged too. When she calls a towing service, they tell her it will take 3 hours to arrive, which is impossible because she has a live broadcast the same day. While desperately searching for transportation, Joy passes by driving a vehicle similar to a tricycle together with the farm workers. Yi runs after him calling for help, but she trips and falls. The workers beg Choi to stop for her because he clearly saw her, but originally had no intention of stopping. He walks toward her, and Yi romantically assumes he is offering his hand to help her up, only to realize he was actually grabbing the glove hanging from his pocket. Coldly, he asks if she plans on staying on the ground forever or if she simply enjoys lying on asphalt. Yi rides with them in the back and starts charming the elderly women while hugging her broken side mirror like a baby. Suddenly, she notices a broken piece of the mirror lying inside the vehicle and instantly realizes the truth. Choi was definitely the one who destroyed it. When they arrive at the station, Choi responsibly waits to make sure all the elderly women board the bus safely, but the rude bus driver suddenly drives recklessly before they can sit down, causing the women and their belongings to fall everywhere. At that moment, Choi's true masculinity finally appears. He angrily boards the bus and firmly warns the driver to either wait until every elderly woman sits comfortably and gathers her belongings or be reported immediately. Yi becomes deeply impressed by his actions. When he steps off the bus, she calls out to thank him. But instead of politely saying you're welcome, he coldly tells her to stand up because the station seat is reserved for elderly people only. Meanwhile, in the city, Yan's manager brings him a full report about Yi's career history and expresses suspicion about her sudden interest in promoting cosmetics. But Yan, already fascinated by her, only focuses on her incredible achievements and record-breaking sales. The manager quietly asks him to read the final page of the file, and Yan's expression completely changes after discovering the horrifying truth, the details of the fake cosmetics disaster from 2002. At the same time, Dam confronts the company manager and objects to her attempt to force Yi back into the cosmetics industry. The manager confidently insists that Yi is talented, trusted by the public, and guaranteed to succeed. Hearing this only fuels Dam's jealousy and hatred toward Yi. As Dam leaves the office angrily, she remembers the painful past and especially Yi's famous line from the old commercial, "This product is safe even for babies and children." But the horrifying reality was that the product caused severe burns and skin deformities to children. Because of that scandal and guilt, Dam was forced to publicly apologize and completely retire from acting, even though she had originally been a famous actress before entering the advertising industry. Behind the scenes at the company, a new war begins. Every time Ji goes to choose a bag to promote on her program, she discovers that Yi has already chosen it first. Ji cannot take it anymore, so she angrily goes to confront her, especially after the advertisement for Yi's new cosmetics segment is released. She accuses Yi of openly fighting her, but Yi answers coldly and confidently, "The way you're talking only proves one thing. You're scared of me." Ji complains to the manager about Yi competing with her for the same brand, but the manager ends the argument by saying Yi is perfect for it and has a huge audience. When the manager notices that Yi still does not seem excited, she plays with her emotions and tells her, "Your entire team is depending on you, so don't let them down." Meanwhile, Yan listens to music while drowning in memories. We return to the first time he ever met Yi. It was raining heavily when she suddenly appeared and stood under his umbrella. From that moment, he was already impressed by her. They walked together, talking about everything, until they stopped in front of a restaurant. Jan happily suggested that they eat lunch there the next day, and the next day, he waited for her from 11:45. Even when she was late, he kept holding on to hope, but she never came. He stayed there alone until the restaurant closed. That heartbreak affected him so badly that he decided to leave Korea and travel abroad. Back in the present, his manager believes their relationship was never meant to happen, but John is determined to make up for the past. This time, he says he wants to be with her officially and forever. Back in the countryside, Choi is peacefully jogging when the elderly grandmother calls him and offers him food. When he refuses and says he is not hungry, she uses her usual threat, "Fine, I'll throw it away then." So he helplessly sits down and eats. While watching TV, the grandmother sees a product advertisement and asks him to order it for her. When Choi looks at the screen, he is shocked to see that the host is the same woman who annoyed him at the farm. Since the grandmother does not remember her card number, Choi uses his own information to place the order. Luckily, the person who places the order wins the program's grand prize. When Yi discovers that the winner is from the same village she visited, she becomes very surprised and sees it as a sign from fate to continue what she started. Yi immediately heads back to the village, but this time she wears comfortable shoes. She arrives at the grandmother's house and asks about Choi, whose name was registered for the prize. The grandmother describes his house to her, and Yi goes there excitedly like a professional host delivering a gift to a customer. She keeps knocking and calling until Choi finally comes out, looks at her coldly, and says, "You again." Ye explains clearly that she did not come for him, but to deliver the program gift. No matter how nicely she smiles, he only gives her rude and annoying reactions. Ye refuses to leave empty-handed this time, so she returns to the grandmother, who warmly insists that she stay for dinner. Yi thanks her and says she will take a bus back to Seoul, but she uses the chance to ask if the grandmother knows the White Mushroom Farm. To her shock, the grandmother says she actually works there. At that moment, Yi starts acting and playing smart. She pretends that it is too late to travel and decides to sleep at the grandmother's house that night to gain her trust. When the grandmother goes to catch a chicken for dinner, the chickens fly everywhere, and Yi and the grandmother start chasing them like crazy in a hilarious scene. They manage to catch all the chickens except one rebellious chicken, which jumps over Choi's wall and enters his garden. Yi has no choice but to climb the wall to catch it. At that exact moment, Joy sees her and is so shocked that he falls onto his leg, shouting, "Couldn't you find the door instead of jumping over the wall?" No matter how much Yi explains that she was only trying to catch the chicken, he refuses to believe her and does his usual annoying move. He calls the police immediately. When the police arrive and search the place, the officer shocks them by saying, "There is no sign of any chicken here." Even worse, he adds, "There isn't even a single feather." Yi asks Choi to speak privately, and when he refuses, she angrily grabs his arm and says, "Move, do you think I'm going to fall in love with you?" She explains that she is a famous person, and going to the police station would create a scandal that could destroy her work. But when he remains cold and careless, Yi plays her winning card. She shows him the dashcam footage from her car, proving clearly that he was the one who broke her mirror and ran away. She scolds him, saying, "Isn't it shameful to make a mistake and run?" Choi is forced to withdraw the report. After the police leave, he tries to act strong and asks how much it costs to fix the mirror. Yi shocks him by saying, 10 million won. He stares at her as if he had broken the wing of an airplane. But Yi offers him a deal. She will cover the cost and forget the whole thing on one condition. He gives her the farm owner's number. Choi stubbornly refuses and insists he will pay for the repair in cash. Before she leaves, he forces her to sign a written promise not to come near his house again, or he will report her to her company. That same night, Hyun visits Choi at his house and tries everything to convince him to renew the contract with L'Etoile. This is when the biggest secret is finally revealed. Choi is not just a worker. He is the owner of the farm himself, but he remains firm and refuses to renew the contract. Meanwhile, Yi returns to the grandmother's house completely exhausted. She sits there wondering who Choi really is, thinking he might be the farm owner's son. She imagines him in all kinds of strange jobs, each one worse than the other, but finally makes one decision. She will not return to Seoul defeated this time. The next day, Yi goes back to the farm, ignoring all his warnings. She is amazed by the white mushrooms. When Choi sees her and takes out his phone to call the police, she cleverly reminds him the written promise was about your house only. This is a farm. She begs him to connect her with the owner because it is a very important matter. Despite his warnings, she starts walking around the place as if it belongs to her father. Yai excitedly explains that she studied the benefits of white mushrooms and their medical and cosmetic effects. She stands in front of the mushroom tree, amazed by how beautiful it looks. For the first time, Joy smiles sincerely because of her admiration for the place, but he quickly returns to his cold self when he notices a chicken feather stuck to her clothes and reminds her of the farm's strict rules. Yi then notices an insect walking on the mushrooms and says, "You're upset over a feather, but the insect is fine?" Choi confidently explains that the insect proves the mushrooms are 100% organic and pure. Then he picks one and eats it in front of her. When Yi starts losing hope, she tries to soften him by asking why he works so hard until this late hour and why all the elderly people leave everything to him just because he is the only young man around. But he refuses to answer and coldly points toward the door, saying, "Please leave." Still, because of the purity of the mushrooms and her confidence in their quality, Yi immediately calls her manager and officially agrees to promote L'Etoile's products. When Choi returns home, he finds an egg and the rebellious chicken in his garden. He smiles and realizes Yi was not lying about the chicken after all. That night, Yi asks the grandmother for the farm owner's number, but the old woman innocently replies, "I see him every day, so why would I take his phone number? Good night," but it is only 10 at night, which is impossible for Yi to sleep through. She tries to sleep, but fails. At around 11:15, she goes outside to look at the stars, hoping the fresh air will help her, but the sounds of crickets and frogs annoy her so much that sleep completely disappears from her eyes. When she returns to the room, she suddenly discovers that she forgot her sleeping pills inside her clothes in the car stuck in the mud. Because of her exhaustion and insomnia, she finally sleeps with great difficulty, only to wake up in the middle of the night crying hysterically. She calls Choi and sobs in a strange panic, saying, "Why did you leave me, Mom?" We then go back to Yi's childhood when she was 10 years old. She was a kind and obedient child, and her role model was the famous star Dam. One day, While cleaning the house, a picture frame falls and breaks, revealing the shocking secret her father had hidden from her. Dam is her real mother. Her mother admits the truth, and Yi accepts her with love and without blame. For a while, they share warm moments full of safety, but her mother's selfishness quickly appears. Because she is an actress, all she cares about is hiding the existence of her daughter to protect her fame. Yi swallows that cruelty and keeps making excuses for her. Her mother barely gives her any time and only allows her one phone call every Sunday at 8 in the evening. This cold treatment continues until Yi grows older. One day, she calls her mother, but she does not answer. Yi later learns that Dam had an accident, so she rushes to the hospital. Out of fear, she calls her mom in front of the reporters, but Dam becomes furious and kicks her out. And instead of Dam apologizing, Yi is the one who sends voice messages apologizing for exposing her. Back in the present, we understand that the strange calls Choi received at dawn were caused by Yi's sleeping pill hallucinations. She had called him unconsciously, crying and saying, "Mom, talk to me, I miss you." By coincidence, Choi's current phone number used to belong to Yi's mother years ago. Choi is deeply shaken by the sound of her crying. He cannot sleep after that and starts his day at dawn. In the village, we also meet Jenny, a sweet woman who owns a small variety store. Her little sister wears a mask because she has a skin rash and is afraid of being bullied. The little girl becomes very happy when she finds the headphones she had always dreamed of in the store, and she learns that Choi was the one who bought them for her. Jenny starts fixing herself in the mirror before meeting him, clearly showing that she likes him a lot. In the morning, Yi wakes up remembering nothing from the mess of the night before. The grandmother offers to take her to the station on the tricycle with the person who passes by every day. Then, they are surprised to see Choi arriving with the chicken and the egg. Yi teases him, saying, "See, you wronged me and even called the police." He gives her a check for the mirror repair and coldly cuts her off, saying, "I hope I never see your face again." To annoy her, he fills the tricycle with goods and leaves only enough space for the grandmother. But the kind grandmother insists that Yi sit in the front directly beside Choi and jokes, "You two look good together." On the road, a bee flies near them, so Yi screams in terror and hides behind Choi's back. During that moment, Choi politely apologizes for misunderstanding her the night before. Yi accepts his apology and tells him that she left the check at the grandmother's house and will never take it. Yi proudly refuses Choi's money, reminding him of the value of her stardom, while he watches her with quiet admiration. From far away, Jenny sees everything and burns with jealousy. At the bus stop, the rude driver feels embarrassed when the grandmother kindly gives him breakfast. Meanwhile, Choi is so sleepy that he almost runs over one of his workers, so the worker takes over driving to let him rest. When Choi returns home, he finds a noisy repair workshop arranged by Hyun, who keeps pressuring him to return to his old passion in the scientific laboratory. Hyun warns him that a new invention is about to turn Korea upside down and criticizes him for refusing to renew the contract with L'Etoile. In the end, Choi agrees to meet the company officials. Hyun takes Choi to a suit shop, and Choi looks so handsome that he even outshines Hyun in the same suit. They finally choose the black suit. Choi then meets CEO John and firmly refuses to renew the contract, even when Yan offers double the money. He insists that the company previously violated an agreement and ends the meeting coldly, leaving Yan regretful. Later, John meets Yi and tells her what happened. Yi is shocked when she hears Choi's full name and realizes that her annoying enemy from the village is actually the farm owner she has been searching for. On another side, the bus driver finds 3 sacks of rice from Choi. When he opens the grandmother's bag, he also finds money and a note asking him to buy milk for his baby. He breaks down in shame after realizing he treated the elderly women badly because of his own financial stress. The next day, he publicly apologizes to them and promises to be more flexible, while everyone applauds and Choi watches with respect. Later, Yi films a promotional video at customer service and faces one ridiculous call after another. One customer bargains over shampoo, another asks for a refund after eating an entire soup, and a man blames them because their fast delivery helped his ex-wife demand higher child support. Yi completely loses her temper and screams. While her co-workers try to calm her down, she suddenly receives a call from Choi, who coldly says, "The device I bought from you is not working." After discovering that Choi is the farm owner, Yi rushes back to the village, seeing his complaint as another sign from fate, even though she feels embarrassed by everything that happened between them. She enters his house under the excuse of checking his complaint about the home sauna device. She stubbornly forces him to try it himself. Even though he starts sweating heavily, he keeps denying that it works. Yi playfully tickles him to show him how soaked he is, and he laughs shyly, saying, "Please, Miss Yi." Because he loses so much water, he drinks a lot. When Yi reaches out to shake his hand goodbye, she suddenly finds herself kicked out of the house within seconds. She spends the night at the grandmother's house and wins her heart by asking for her famous potatoes. But that night, she takes sleeping pills again and calls Choi while he is deeply asleep, acting completely crazy on the phone. The next morning, Yi clings to the grandmother as she goes to the farm. There, Choi catches Yi hiding her face under a large hat and orders her to leave. But the grandmother's voice saves her, giving her a chance to slip inside. Throughout the day, Choi watches her closely as she carefully cleans the mushrooms, and he even praises her work. But Yi keeps nagging him to renew the L'Etoile contract until they reach his house. When he tries to close the door to escape from her, she trips and thinks he will save her. Instead, he lets her fall hard, causing a minor sprain and a fracture in her arm. Still, his gentlemanly side appears, and he takes her to the doctor to bandage her hand. As they leave, he accuses her of pretending and making scenes to change his mind. Yi proudly replies that she has an important shoot at 11 and has no time for tricks. That night, Joy sees her on television doing her exercises while clearly exhausted. He remembers what she said about developing white mushroom products. At the same time, Jenny visits him angrily and questions him about what Yi is doing around him. Back at the company, Ji cruelly grabs Yi's injured arm and demands that she stay away from L'Etoile. Then she maliciously asks why Yi insists on destroying Poor Star Dam. Meanwhile, Yi's father visits her apartment and throws away the spoiled food. We discover that he is the one who cooks for her, but Yi treats him coldly. When he accidentally grabs her injured arm, she screams in pain and explodes at him, saying he always does whatever he wants without caring about the people around him. We then return to a painful flashback from Yi's childhood. Yi was heartbroken because her mother ignored her calls. Her father breaks her heart even more by admitting that he was the one who told her mother not to answer, because he wanted to protect Yi's dignity instead of letting Dam treat her like a random fan. But none of that mattered to the little girl, who only wanted her mother. Back in the present, her father apologizes with a broken heart. That same night, Yi's condition worsens because of the sleeping pills. She starts sleepwalking and hallucinating. She calls Choi unconsciously, crying, "It's me, Yai Mom, I miss you," and talks about the pain in her arm. Choi first thinks she is pretending to gain his sympathy, but just as he is about to hang up, he hears the loud sound of a vase breaking inside her apartment. He becomes worried and immediately decides to go save her. We discover that Yi sat in front of the broken vase for 3 full hours while completely unconscious. Then she wandered outside into the surrounding streets without awareness. A speeding car suddenly comes toward her and almost hits her, but at the last second, Choi appears like a hero and saves her from death, holding her in his arms while she is still lost in another world, completely disconnected from reality.